we needed to bring in priests from India. And so that R1 visa category was not something that Hindus had been actively speaking out for. And so we were able to join a coalition of interfaith organizations to speak out on that. We also tried to present solutions to contemporary problems in Hindu philosophy, such as the sustainability, violence against women, or we have public policy briefs that address those things. If you were to go on our website, you would see some of those things. And then the most important, in my opinion, because I have 2 children, I want to promote a sustain an organization that will support for generations to come the idea that we are going to be here as part of the American landscape. For the next generation, we want to create an institution that will be sustainable. So why does it matter? It's because when people meet a Hindu, we want to create a lasting first impression, or when they understand what a Hindu is. What do we mean by that? Impressions and perceptions, because it affects how all of us are treated. How teachers treat a Hindu student, how your boss treats you when you ask for a day off on Diwali. We actually have a video, if you go online and look. We talk about what we did with our congressional resolution on Diwali, and Arvind is actually in there saying, my boss will understand why I asked for Diwali off. And then when a temple is built, here I don't know what the conditions have been for various temples, but in Canton, Michigan, when they chose to expand their temple, there's a lot of objection from the community. And so they had many city council meetings where they had to engage the broader community so that they were not concerned by this big temple being built and causing problems to traffic flow. So those kinds of things. Also the reporting. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the New York Times has sort of a slant on the reporting on Hindus. It's somewhat of a veneer of taking slight digs. And so we really try to develop a relationship with journalists, including Yoga Journal. Yoga Journal actually told some of our staff that Hinduism has baggage, and that's why they never reference it when they talk about yoga. Congressional offices, when we've gone, we go on advocacy days every year, annually, and during that time, when we introduce ourselves, somebody asked us, so are you Shia or Sunni? Not even close, right? And recently, very recently, one of our staffers was having a meeting in an office with a congressional aide, and they asked him, so will Hitler reincarnate as a cockroach? So those are kind of silly, maybe funny, but really we want people to understand the high ideals that we have within Hinduism and have a little bit more respect for it. And obviously this is the one that impacted me a lot. When I started this work, people automatically assumed that I was associated with a Hindu nationalist organization. Well, I actually never got involved in politics. HAF itself is a nonpartisan organization. There is no reason to assume that just because I'm self-identifying as a Hindu, that I really have anything to do with Hindu nationalism. Whether or not you think it's good or bad, just making that assumption that as a Hindu who is an activist, that place of social justice that Dharma brings you to does not necessarily mean that you have something to do with any kind of violent politics in India. The highlights. Welcome to the newcomers. Sorry we got started.
Thank you.
Please help yourselves and we'll jump right in. I am Padma and welcome. The highlights of what HAF has done over the last more than 10 years of its existence. The first reception, so we do this thing called DC Advocacy Days. We go to Washington once a year. When I joined HAF, I actually joined 2 years after it was formed. But the first year that they had their reception, when they went to DC and met with congressional offices to explain what issues are there for Hindus in public policy and in day-to-day life here as Americans, we had 30 people at the reception. 10th anniversary, we had over 300 people. And this past year, we had a standard room only. So it's really, really amazing that we've been able to do that. The back of that person that's speaking at the podium is our very own Tulsi Gabbard, Hindu Congresswoman. One of the things that we've been able to do is in California last year and in Delaware, Michigan, and California this year, October was declared as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month. Why do we need to do that? Because we want people to know that we are here, that we're part of the American landscape, that we're here to stay, and that there's something of value in what Hindus and Hindu philosophy has to offer the American quilt that we're part of, or the melting pot. So advocacy is speaking out. What does speaking out entail? For example, the FBI tracks hate crimes where a specific population is targeted. And we have worked with the Sikh community to track, to include in the FBI's forms a hate crime against a Hindu or a Sikh. In fact, a few years ago when we started doing this, I actually went to DC on Ganesh Chaturthi, sacrificed my celebration of Ganesh Chaturthi in my home with my family so that I could be there in Washington so that we could submit testimony along with other organizations about including anti-Hindu and anti-Sikh as a category. We've also provided training. Nicholas, do you want to talk about? So we have a big focus over the last couple of years. We actually hired someone to focus on education, and Murli Balaji is our Director of Education and Curriculum Reform, because we know that what is represented about Hinduism in the textbooks is inaccurate. HAF was involved with a whole host of organizations in 2005, but Nicholas has been part of the group that has been working lately to speak about what we've been doing.
Sure. So with our educational efforts, our big recent one is this Hinduism 101 thing, where we've put together a series of modules essentially which we can use to educate educators about Hinduism, so that in addition to our textbook reform efforts, the students can get an accurate vision of what Hinduism is. And this program can also be applied, and is being applied to things like TSA agents, State Department workers, so that government agents who would otherwise might treat Hindus differently can get an accurate view of the people that they're serving.
Is that for middle schoolers or high schoolers?
For high schoolers, I think it's for middle schoolers.
It's for we've trained actually both middle school and high school level. There's an organization nationally called the National Council for Social Studies, and there are separate organizations at the state level. And that is what we're trying to do, is get into different school districts, either through our own contacts or through other people who we know within HAF. In Michigan, we've addressed it with 2 different school districts that we know there. And what we're also trying to do is train the trainer, so that we have established people, because a lot of the textbook information, it's not that the teacher wants to teach it incorrectly, but it's because it's based on something that was written 20, 30 years ago, because they don't have the money these days in public education to update textbooks. Okay.
I supported in quite a big way, according to my capacity, the lawsuit. Remember the one back in 2006, 2007 with Arvind?
Right.
I supported that financially a lot, and I've been out of touch with him since, but when I spoke to him back in 2008, they had received a large settlement, and I know he worked extremely hard, and kudos to him. He deserves a lot of credit. He certainly has my respect, because he single-handedly, without any reimbursement, without any honor or recognition from the Hindu community, and I find that they really fail to honor good people amongst them. But, I mean, I was born in England. I don't even speak a word of Hindi, and I have fought and agitated all my life for Hindu human rights and Hindu dignity and honor. But I find a lot of Hindus lack that self-respect and self-pride, especially the ones who are born in India. They seem to have this self-loathing, and they want to wash themselves away of their Hindu Indian heritage, and they want to do a nice white makeover. I find it very superficial and supercilious. And I resent them because they're not even born in the West. And as far as the Sikhs have extricated themselves from Hinduism. The Gurdwaras are full of hate speech against Hinduism. I have a Sikh grandmother, and SMART, who is the Sikh Alliance, they don't want to work with Hindu groups. Hindu groups have approached them in the past. They feel they're more allied with Islam now, so let them suffer the consequences of that. If they want to side with the wrong side for the wrong reasons, then let them pay the consequences of that, because I think everyone has to be responsible.